Commander Alex stared at the blinking dot on the monitor, a frown deepening on his weathered face. 15 years aboard Delta 7 space station, and he'd never seen anything like it. The object was moving too fast, changing direction too sharply. Nothing natural moved like that. "Tom, run the analysis again," he ordered, his voice steady despite the unease building in his chest. Lieutenant Tom nodded, his fingers flying across the keyboard. "Already on it, sir, but the results will be the same. Whatever this is, it's not an asteroid, not a comet, and definitely not one of ours." The space monitoring station Delta 7 hung in orbit 250 miles above Earth, a marvel of international cooperation. Its primary mission was to track space debris, warn of incoming natural objects, and monitor satellite traffic. But today, it was tracking something else entirely. "How fast is it moving now?" Alex asked, leaning closer to the screen. "That's the strangest part," replied Emma, the station's lead scientist. Her red hair was pulled back in a messy ponytail, dark circles under her eyes betraying her lack of sleep. "It was moving at nearly 1/10 the speed of light when we first detected it at the edge of the solar system yesterday. Now it's slowing down. Rapidly." "That's impossible," Tom said, shaking his head. "Nothing can change speed like that without burning up or breaking apart. And yet here we are," Alex muttered. He straightened up and made a decision. "Contact mission control. This is now a first contact scenario." The room fell silent. First contact. The word hung in the air like a physical presence. "Are you sure, sir?" Emma asked, her voice barely above a whisper. "We should run more tests before we—" "Look at the data, Emma." Alex cut her off, pointing at the screen. "It's changing course deliberately, slowing down as it approaches. This is not natural and not human-made. We need to prepare." 6 hours later, the Situation Room at the United Nations headquarters in New York was filled to capacity. World leaders and military commanders from every major nation sat around the large oval table, while aides and specialists lined the walls. Screens displayed the mysterious object, now clearly visible as a sleek, silvery vessel about half a mile long. "It's entered Earth orbit," announced General Williams, pointing to the latest trajectory plot. "Holding position approximately 300 miles up, over the Pacific Ocean." President Clark of the United States leaned forward. "Have we made contact?" "We've sent messages in all known languages and mathematical sequences," replied Dr. Rivera, head of the International Space Agency. "Radio, laser, even old-fashioned Morse code. No response." "What about its weapons systems?" asked the Russian president, his face grim on one of the video screens. Dr. Rivera shook her head. "We can't detect anything that looks like weapons, but that doesn't mean they're not there. Their technology is clearly far beyond ours." "How much time do we have before they do something?" The Chinese premier's voice was calm, but his knuckles were white as he gripped his pen. "That's the question, isn't it?" President Clark sighed. "We have no way of knowing their intentions." "I recommend we ready our defenses," General Williams said firmly. "Move our fleets to strategic positions, prepare missile defense systems, and evacuate major cities if possible." A murmur of agreement ran through the room, but Dr. Rivera raised her hand. "With all due respect, General, showing military force might be perceived as hostile. If they wanted to attack, they could have done so already. Their technology is vastly superior. So we just sit and wait." The French president's voice rose in frustration. "We stay ready, but we don't provoke," President Clark decided. "Continue attempts at communication, and pray they come in peace." Back on Delta 7, Commander Alex couldn't shake the feeling of dread as he watched the alien vessel through the station's powerful telescope. It hung motionless against the backdrop of stars, beautiful and terrifying in its perfect stillness. "Still no response to our signals?" he asked, though he already knew the answer. "Nothing," Tom replied, rubbing his tired eyes. "It's like they're deliberately ignoring us." Emma floated up to the viewing port, her face reflected against the darkness of space. Or maybe they're studying us, learning our languages, observing our reactions. That's a comforting thought, Tom said with a humorless laugh. A soft beep from the communication console interrupted them. Commander, we're getting a direct call from the UN Secretary General, the communications officer announced. Alex pushed off from the window and floated over to the console. Put it through. The Secretary General's face appeared on screen, lines of worry etched deeply around his eyes. Commander Alex, I have a special request. Your station is closest to the alien vessel. We need you to attempt a direct approach. Alex felt his stomach tighten. Sir, with all due respect, Delta 7 is a monitoring station. We don't have the capability to. You have the emergency shuttle, the Secretary General interrupted. We need visual confirmation of any activity. Just get close enough to see if there are windows, doors, any sign of life. Do not attempt to board or make physical contact. Alex looked at his crew, saw the mix of fear and determination on their faces. Understood, sir. We'll prepare the shuttle immediately. 2 hours later, Alex and Emma were strapped into the small emergency shuttle, approaching the alien vessel with agonizing slowness. Keep the approach vector steady, Alex instructed, his eyes fixed on the looming shape ahead. Stop at 500 yards. Emma nodded, her hands steady on the controls despite her racing heart. Look at the surface, she whispered. It's so smooth. No seams, no rivets, nothing that looks like an entrance. The alien ship grew larger in their viewport, its surface reflecting the sunlight with an almost liquid shimmer. It was beautiful in an unsettling way. Are you recording everything? Alex asked, not taking his eyes off the vessel. Every wavelength we can detect, Emma confirmed. Infrared isn't showing any heat signatures. It's the same temperature as the surrounding space. Suddenly, a soft blue light began to pulse along the surface of the alien craft. Do you see that? Emma's voice rose with excitement. It's responding to our presence. The pulsing light grew stronger, forming a line that ran the length of the vessel. Pull back, Alex ordered, a sense of alarm rising in his chest. Get us some distance. Before Emma could react, the blue line widened, revealing an opening in the seemingly solid hull. Something emerged, a small pod-like object no bigger than a car. It's launching something, Alex said, activating the shuttle's emergency thrusters. Mission Control, do you copy? The alien vessel has deployed a smaller craft. We are retreating to safe distance. The pod ignored their retreat, accelerating past them toward Earth. Track it, Alex commanded as they raced back to Delta 7. Where is it heading? Emma worked the sensors frantically, calculating trajectory. It's heading for the northern hemisphere, North America. Looks like a rural area in the Midwest United States. As they docked with Delta 7, reports were already flooding in from Earth. The pod had landed in an empty field outside the small town of Meadowbrook, population 5,000. No explosion, no signs of aggression. Just silent, waiting presence. The deadly quiet before disaster. Alex thought grimly as he watched the news footage of military vehicles surrounding the landed pod. Or maybe, just maybe, the quiet before a new beginning. The pod's surface suddenly split open like a blooming flower. From within emerged a figure, clearly humanoid but not quite human, stepping onto Earth's soil for the first time. First contact had begun. The being that stepped out of the pod stood just over 6 feet tall. Its body was humanoid but too perfect, skin smooth like polished marble, with a slight bluish tint. Its face had all the expected features: 2 eyes, a nose, a mouth, but they were arranged with such symmetry that it looked more like a beautiful statue than a living creature. The eyes were the most striking feature, large, almond-shaped, and entirely silver with no visible pupils. The gathered soldiers raised their weapons instinctively, but Colonel James held up his hand. "Hold your fire," he ordered, his voice barely above a whisper. The alien looked around slowly, taking in the circle of military vehicles and nervous soldiers. Then, to everyone's shock, it smiled, a perfect imitation of a human expression, and spoke in flawless English. "I am Tav, envoy of the collective. I come in peace and friendship to the people of Earth." Colonel James stepped forward cautiously. "I am Colonel James Thompson, United States Army. How do you know our language?" Tav tilted his head slightly. "We have been observing your world for some time. Your broadcasts travel through space. We have learned much about you." A chill ran down James's spine despite the warm spring air. How long had they been watching? What else did they know? "Why are you here?" he asked, keeping his voice steady. "To extend an invitation," Tav replied, his voice musical and pleasant. "Your species has reached a critical point in its development. The collective wishes to welcome humanity into the galactic community." 24 hours later, Tav stood before the United Nations General Assembly. The hall was packed beyond capacity, with world leaders who normally sent representatives now present in person. Billions watched the live broadcast around the world. "The collective spans 3,000 star systems," Tav explained, his voice carrying easily through the hushed chamber. "We are a peaceful alliance of species dedicated to advancement and harmony. Earth would be the newest member of our family." "And what would membership entail?" asked the Secretary General, leaning forward with intense interest. "Exchange of knowledge, access to our technology, protection from less friendly species that exist in the darkness between stars." Tav gestured gracefully. "We offer this because we see great potential in humanity." "And what do you want in return?" The question came from the Russian ambassador, his voice tinged with suspicion. Tav smiled his perfect smile. "Only friendship and a small outpost on your planet. A place where our representatives can live and work alongside humans, helping to integrate Earth into the greater community." The chamber erupted in excited whispers. The Secretary General raised his hands for quiet. "This is a momentous occasion," he said, "but we will need time to discuss." "Of course," Tav interrupted smoothly. "Take all the time you need. As a show of good faith, I am authorized to offer immediate gifts of technology." He waved his hand, and several small silver spheres floated out from behind him, hovering in the air. "Medical advances that will cure your most devastating diseases. Clean energy that will end your dependence on fossil fuels. Food production methods that will eliminate hunger." The whispers grew louder, more excited. Hope and greed battled with caution in the eyes of the assembled leaders. Captain Marcus Wade watched the broadcast from his office at Military Intelligence Headquarters, his eyes narrowed with suspicion. 20 years in the field had taught him to trust his instincts, and every instinct was screaming that something was wrong. "It's too perfect," he muttered to his assistant, Lieutenant Lisa Miller. "Too convenient." "Sir." Lisa looked up from her tablet. "The timing, the technology, the lack of demands." Marcus gestured at the screen where Tav was now answering questions with practiced ease. "Nobody gives something for nothing, especially not an advanced civilization that could probably take whatever they want by force." "Maybe they really are just peaceful," Lisa suggested, though her tone suggested she shared his doubts. "Maybe." Marcus tapped his fingers on the desk. "But I want to know more about these gifts before we accept them. Get me everything we have on the landing site. Soil samples, radiation readings, anything unusual. And find me our best xenobiologist." Dr. Jack Reed was not what Marcus had expected. The renowned xenobiologist was barely 30, with rumpled clothes and thick glasses that kept sliding down his nose. But his eyes were sharp with intelligence, and his reputation was impeccable. "You wanted to see me, Captain?" Reed asked, looking around the secure underground lab with open curiosity. "I need your help, Doctor," Marcus said, gesturing to the sealed container on the table. "This is a sample of material from the alien pod. I want to know everything about it." Reed's eyes lit up. "How did you get this?" "The site is under tight security." "Let's just say I still have friends in the field," Marcus cut him off. "Can you analyze it or not?" "Of course." Reed pulled on gloves and carefully opened the container. Inside was a small piece of the silvery material that made up the alien pod. This could take time. We may not have much. The UN is voting tomorrow on whether to accept the aliens' gifts. Reed looked up sharply. They're moving that fast, without proper research. Curing cancer is a powerful motivator, Marcus said grimly, as is clean energy and endless food. Nothing is without cost, Reed murmured, already setting up his equipment. Especially miracles. 3 days later, the first embassy of the collective was established in central Manhattan. A beautiful silvery building that seemed to grow overnight, rising seamlessly from the ground without construction crews or noise. Tav announced that a delegation of 12 representatives would arrive within the week to begin the process of integrating Earth into the collective. Marcus paced his office, frustration evident in every step. The world was embracing the aliens with open arms, while his investigation crawled along at a snail's pace. The few samples he'd managed to secure were proving nearly impossible to analyze with Earth technology. His secure phone buzzed. "Reed. Tell me you have something," Marcus answered without preamble. "I do." Reed's voice was tight with excitement or fear, Marcus couldn't tell which. "But not over the phone. Meet me at the lab. Now." When Marcus arrived, Reed was hunched over a microscope, his face pale. "What did you find?" Marcus asked, closing the door behind him. Reed looked up, his eyes wide behind his glasses. "The material from the pod. It's not just metal or plastic or any normal substance. It's partially organic. And it's active." "Active how?" Reed stepped back from the microscope. "It's responding to stimuli, changing its structure at a microscopic level. And look at this." He pulled up an image on his computer. "These are particles we found in the soil around the landing site, too small to see with the naked eye." Marcus leaned closer. The screen showed what looked like tiny machines, complex structures clearly not natural. "What am I looking at?" "Nanobots," Reed said simply. "Billions of them, released when the pod landed. They're in the air, the water, probably spreading across the country by now." "Doing what?" Marcus asked, dread settling in his stomach. "I don't know yet," Reed admitted, "but they're designed to interact with organic material, including human tissue." Marcus straightened up, his decision made. "Pack up everything you need. We're going off the grid." "What?" Reed blinked in confusion. "I've got a bad feeling about these friendly aliens," Marcus said, already heading for the door. "And I want answers before those 12 representatives arrive." Reed hurriedly began gathering his equipment. Outside, crowds celebrated in the streets, welcoming their new friends from the stars, blissfully unaware of the deadly quiet that had settled over Earth, the quiet that always comes before disaster. The cabin was small but well hidden, tucked away in the dense woods of the Appalachian Mountains. Once a vacation home belonging to Marcus's grandfather, it was now their base of operations. No internet, no cell service, and most importantly, no way for the mysterious nanobots to transmit data. Dr. Reed had set up his equipment on the wooden dining table, the scientific instruments looking strangely out of place against the rustic background. He hunched over a microscope, examining another sample from the alien pod. "Any progress?" Marcus asked, setting down 2 cups of coffee. Reed looked up, dark circles under his eyes showing his lack of sleep. "Yes and no. I've confirmed the nanobots can interact with human cells, but I can't determine the exact purpose. They seem dormant, waiting for something." Marcus frowned. "A signal, maybe? From the alien ship or the new arrivals?" "Possible." Reed took a grateful sip of coffee. "What about your end?" Marcus spread several papers on the table, old-fashioned, printed reports and photographs. Nothing digital that might be compromised. "I called in some favors from friends around the world," he explained. "People I trust. They'd been gathering information quietly." Reed picked up one of the photographs, a satellite image of what appeared to be a massive structure on a distant planet. "What am I looking at?" "That's from a deep space telescope. It's Kepler 186f, an Earth-like planet about 500 light-years away. Marcus pointed to the strange formation visible on the planet's surface. According to astronomical records, that structure wasn't there 50 years ago. The collective? Marcus nodded grimly. We think so. Now look at this. He pulled out another photo. This is Kepler 186, just 10 years later. Reed gasped. The planet's once blue oceans were now a muddy brown. The green landmasses were gray. And the strange structure had expanded to cover nearly a quarter of the visible surface. What happened? We don't know exactly, Marcus admitted, but we found similar patterns on 7 other planets in the last century. Each one was discovered to have intelligent life. Each one was likely contacted by the collective. And each one is now dead or dying. Reed set down the photos, his face pale. They're not here to help us. They're here to take over. That's my guess, Marcus agreed. The question is how. And why the elaborate charade? As if in answer, the small radio on the kitchen counter crackled to life with the daily news broadcast. They'd been keeping it on to monitor world events. Celebrations continue worldwide as the collective delegation arrives today, the announcer said cheerfully. The 12 representatives will be greeted with a special ceremony at the new embassy. In related news, the first medical centers using collective healing technology opened yesterday in major cities. Early reports claim miraculous results, with terminal cancer patients showing significant improvement after just one treatment. The World Health Organization calls it the greatest medical breakthrough in human history. Marcus switched off the radio with a disgusted flick of his wrist. They're moving faster than I expected. We need help, Reed said, standing up suddenly. We can't fight this alone. Who do you suggest? The government? The military? They're all too busy celebrating their new alien friends. Reed paced the small cabin. What about your assistant, Lisa? You said she was skeptical too. Marcus considered this. Maybe. And there's Jamie in communications. She's brilliant with signals and encryption. If anyone can figure out how the nanobots communicate, it's her. And we'll need someone who understands their technology better than I do, Reed added. I know an engineer, Pat. Worked on experimental propulsion systems before this. Unconventional thinker, but trustworthy. Marcus nodded slowly. All right, but we need to bring them in carefully. No electronic contact. 1 week later, their small team had grown to 5. Lisa arrived first, bringing with her classified reports on the alien embassy. Jamie followed 2 days later, carrying equipment that she swore couldn't be tracked. Pat was the last to join, arriving with a truck full of scavenged electronics and a wild gleam in his eyes. The nanobots are definitely receiving signals, Jamie announced on their 3rd night together. She had set up a sophisticated signal detector that she'd built herself. Short bursts, highly encrypted, coming from the embassy. Can you decode them? Marcus asked. Jamie shook her head. Not yet. It's unlike any encryption I've seen, but I can tell you the frequency is increasing. More signals every day. Pat, who had been tinkering with alien technology samples, looked up sharply. That matches what I'm seeing. The samples are becoming more active, like they're building up to something. The question is what? Reed muttered, reviewing his latest test results. The nanobots have spread throughout the water system, the air. They're in everything. Everyone. Including us. Lisa asked, her voice tight. Reed nodded grimly. Almost certainly. But being here, away from the main signal source, may be keeping them dormant in our systems. Marcus stood by the window, looking out at the darkening forest. We need to understand their endgame. Lisa, what about those historical records you were checking? Lisa pulled out her notebook. I found something interesting. Every 50 to 100 years, Earth experiences a major extinction event that scientists can't fully explain. Species just die off rapidly, sometimes up to 30% of all living things. Natural disasters, Jamie suggested. That's what's always been assumed, Lisa replied. But the pattern is too regular, and each event corresponds with increased meteor activity. Marcus turned from the window. You think the collective has visited before? Maybe they've been harvesting, taking what they need and leaving the rest to recover before coming back. Lisa looked around at the group. What if we're just a resource to them, like a crop that needs to be harvested periodically? A heavy silence fell over the cabin. Finally, Pat spoke up. I might have something that could help us find out. He reached into his bag and pulled out what looked like a small silver sphere, one of the gift devices from the collective. I managed to get one before I left. Are you insane? Marcus exclaimed. That thing could be tracking us right now. Relax, Pat said with a grin. I've got it inside a Faraday cage. No signals in or out. But if we can crack it open and see how it works. Reed moved closer, professional curiosity overcoming his caution. The medical ones supposedly cure cancer by restructuring cells. What if they're not curing people at all? What do you mean? Lisa asked. What if they're changing people, preparing them? Reed's eyes were wide with the horrible possibility. The nanobots, the medical cures, the clean energy devices being installed in homes around the world. They're all connected. Jamie snapped her fingers suddenly. The signal. I bet it's a countdown. Marcus felt a chill run down his spine. To what? Activation, Jamie said simply. Whatever these devices and nanobots are meant to do, they're waiting for a signal to start. And with the main delegation arriving today, Marcus didn't need to finish the thought. Pat hefted the silver sphere. Then we better figure this out fast. Outside, the skies were clear and calm. Another quiet, beautiful day as humanity welcomed its destroyers with open arms, completely unaware of the disaster about to unfold. Morning light filtered through the cabin windows as Pat carefully dismantled the silver sphere. He worked with steady hands, using tools he had modified himself to avoid triggering any security mechanisms. Almost there, he muttered as the others watched. With a final delicate movement, the sphere split open, revealing a complex arrangement of crystalline structures and what looked like living tissue. What in the world? Reed leaned closer, his scientific curiosity overcoming his caution. It's biomechanical, Pat said, carefully probing the internal components. Like nothing I've ever seen. The crystal structures seem to be directing energy, but the biological components are responding somehow. Jamie had set up sensors around the dismantled device. I'm detecting low-level radiation and some kind of field effect I can't identify. Reed put on gloves and carefully extracted a sample of the biological material. This isn't just similar to the pod material. It's identical. All their technology seems to be partially alive. But what does it do? Marcus pressed, always focused on the practical threat. Lisa, who had been reviewing reports from around the world, looked up from her laptop. Whatever it does, it's working. Every country that's accepted collective technology is reporting the same thing. Miraculous medical cures, crops growing at impossible rates, energy production beyond anything we've achieved before. And no one's questioning it. Marcus asked in disbelief. Just the opposite, Lisa replied grimly. Anyone who raises concerns is being called a conspiracy theorist or anti-progress. The public approval rating for the collective is at 97%. Marcus paced the cabin. While we've been hiding out here, they've managed to get their technology into every aspect of human life. Medical facilities, power grids, food production, water treatment. It's the perfect invasion, Reed said quietly. No weapons, no resistance. They just walk right in and take over. Pat, still examining the device, suddenly sat up straight. Wait a minute. These crystal formations, they remind me of something. He rummaged through his bag and pulled out a scientific journal. Here, research on brain-computer interfaces. The patterns are similar. You think these devices interface with the human brain? Reed asked, alarmed. Not directly, Pat replied. But the nanobots could. They're small enough to cross the blood-brain barrier. If they're in our water, our food, they're in everyone, Jamie finished. And with the right signal. A heavy silence fell over the group as the horrifying possibility sank in. Control, Marcus said finally. They're going to control everyone. Turn humans into, what? Slaves? Puppets? Or worse, Reed suggested. Remember those planets we saw? What if they're not just taking over worlds? They're converting them, using the resources, including the intelligent life, to expand their collective. Lisa's laptop pinged with an alert. The delegation is giving a worldwide address in 6 hours. All channels, all platforms. They're calling it a message of unity. Marcus straightened up, decision made. That's when they'll do it. Send the activation signal. He looked around at the group. We need to warn everyone. How? Jamie asked. No one will believe us, and any electronic message we send will be blocked or discredited immediately. Pat's eyes lit up. Unless we use their own technology against them. He pointed to the dismantled sphere. These crystals, they're signal amplifiers, incredibly powerful ones. If we could reconfigure them, use them to broadcast on the same frequency as the nanobots, we could send our own message. Jamie caught on immediately. Or better yet, a countermeasure. What kind of countermeasure? Marcus asked. Reed had been quiet, thinking. Now he spoke up. If the nanobots are waiting for an activation signal, we could send a deactivation signal instead, or at least an interference pattern. But we'd need to get close to their main transmitter, Jamie pointed out. The embassy in Manhattan. And we'd need proof, Lisa added. Something so compelling that people couldn't ignore it. Marcus nodded slowly. I might have an answer for both problems. He pulled out a small black notebook from his pocket. Old school, nothing digital. While you've all been working on the tech, I've been calling in every favor I have. I've got someone inside the embassy, a maintenance worker who was skeptical from the start. What did they find? Lisa asked. Marcus opened the notebook. The basement levels of the embassy go down at least 20 stories deeper than the official plans show. And there's some kind of massive power source at the bottom. Energy readings off the charts. A transmitter, Jamie suggested. Or a portal, Pat said, his voice hushed. A way to bring more of them through once the takeover begins. Marcus continued. My contact also managed to get access to a restricted room. Saw something that convinced him I was right to be suspicious. He flipped to a page with a rough sketch. Holding cells. Hundreds of them. Currently empty. They're planning to take prisoners, Lisa whispered. Not just any prisoners. Marcus tapped the sketch. The cells had names on them. World leaders, military commanders, scientists, anyone who might lead a resistance. Reed looked grim. They've planned for everything. Not everything, Marcus said firmly. They haven't planned for us. He looked around at the small team. An intelligence officer, a scientist, an engineer, a communications expert, and an analyst. 5 people against an alien invasion. We know what they're doing. We have a way to fight back. And most importantly, they don't know about us. Jamie nodded, determination replacing fear. So what's the plan? We split up, Marcus decided. Pat and Reed. Finish building the countermeasure device. Make it portable. Jamie, I need you to hijack a satellite uplink, something powerful enough to broadcast globally once we trigger our signal. And me? Lisa asked. You're coming with me to Manhattan, Marcus told her. We're going to get into that embassy, place the device, and get proof of what they're planning. That's suicide, Pat said bluntly. Maybe, Marcus acknowledged. But if those aliens send their activation signal, humanity as we know it ends. And I'm not letting that happen without a fight. Reed looked at the dismantled alien technology. We have about 5 hours to put this together and get to New York. Then we better get moving, Marcus said. Outside, the sun continued to rise in a perfectly clear sky. Birds sang in the trees. All across America, people were going about their normal lives, excited about the special broadcast scheduled for that evening. The deadly quiet before disaster had never felt so peaceful. The streets of Manhattan were crowded with excited people heading toward the giant screens set up in Times Square. Everyone wanted to witness the collective special broadcast. No one paid attention to the maintenance van that pulled up behind the embassy, or the two workers who stepped out wearing uniforms with the building management company logo. "Security is tight," Marcus muttered to Lisa as they approached the service entrance. "Stay alert." Lisa nodded, adjusting the tool belt around her waist. Hidden among the tools was Pat's completed device, a modified version of the alien sphere that would, hopefully, disrupt the activation signal. In her pocket was a small but powerful camera. Evidence would mean nothing if they couldn't get out alive to share it. Marcus showed the fake IDs to the guard at the door. "Maintenance. Got a report of a water leak in the basement." The guard barely glanced at them. His eyes had a slight silver sheen, a sign that the nanobots in his system were already partially active. "Proceed to the service elevator," he said in a flat voice. Once inside the elevator, Marcus took a deep breath. That was too easy. "They're not expecting resistance," Lisa whispered. "Why would they? Everyone loves them." The elevator descended past the ground floor, into the sub-basements, but instead of stopping at the bottom floor shown on the building plans, it kept going down. "How deep does this go?" Lisa wondered. "We're about to find out," Marcus replied grimly. Meanwhile, in a small office building 30 blocks away, Jamie worked furiously at her computer. She had managed to hack into a satellite uplink facility, giving her access to a global broadcasting system. All she needed now was the signal from Marcus and Lisa. "Any word?" Reed asked, pacing behind her. Jamie shook her head. "Nothing yet. They should be in position in about 10 minutes. Pat was making final adjustments to a second countermeasure device, a backup in case the first one failed. "I still don't understand why they're doing this," he muttered. "If they have the technology to travel between stars, why not just take what they want by force?" "Maybe they can't," Reed suggested. "Their physical forms might be weak, their numbers small. Maybe they need us, our bodies, our planet, intact." Jamie's computer suddenly beeped. "I'm picking up a massive energy surge from the embassy. Whatever they're planning, it's starting to power up." The elevator finally stopped at the 20th sublevel. When the doors opened, Marcus and Lisa found themselves in a vast chamber filled with humming machinery. In the center was a towering crystal structure, pulsing with blue energy. "The transmitter," Marcus whispered. They stepped out cautiously. The chamber appeared empty of people or aliens, but cameras were mounted on the walls. "We need to move fast," Marcus said. "Place the device as close to the central structure as possible." Lisa nodded and began moving toward the crystal tower. Suddenly, a voice spoke from behind them. "I was wondering when someone would figure it out." They spun around to find Tav standing there, his perfect form seeming to glow slightly in the blue light of the chamber. "You," Marcus said, reaching for the gun hidden under his uniform. Tav smiled his perfect smile. "Please, don't bother. Your primitive weapons can't harm me." "What are you?" Lisa demanded, subtly moving her hand toward the device hidden in her tool belt. "I am a messenger," Tav replied calmly. "A scout. The first wave." He gestured to the crystal structure. "Beautiful, isn't it? When activated, it will connect every nanomachine we've distributed across your planet. Every human who has accepted our gifts will become part of the collective." "Mind control," Marcus stated flatly. Tav shook his head. "Not control. Conversion. Your bodies will remain, but your consciousness will join ours. Your planet's resources will feed our expansion. It's actually quite merciful. Most species don't get to live on as part of something greater." Lisa had managed to activate the camera in her pocket. Every word was being recorded. "Why the charade?" Marcus asked, keeping Tav's attention. Why pretend to be friendly? We learned long ago that conquest through violence is inefficient, Tav explained. Too much damage to valuable resources. This way, you invited us in. You spread our technology yourselves, eager for its benefits. Not everyone, Marcus said defiantly. Tav's smile widened slightly. A handful of skeptics doesn't concern us. Once the majority is converted, the rest will follow or be eliminated. What about the other delegation members? Lisa asked. There is no delegation, Tav said simply. There is only me and the ship. The others are merely projections, a comforting illusion while the real work happens below. And what's behind Jupiter? Marcus asked, remembering the strange readings they had detected. For the first time, Tav looked surprised. You know about that? Impressive. Those are the harvester ships. Once the conversion is complete, they will come to collect the transformed resources. Lisa had edged closer to the crystal structure. Just a few more steps. It won't work, Marcus said confidently. Humanity won't submit so easily. Tav laughed, a musical sound with no warmth in it. You already have. The broadcast begins in 2 minutes. Every human watching or listening will receive the activation signal. And with your world's obsession with media, that's nearly everyone. In one swift motion, Lisa pulled out the device and threw it toward the base of the crystal tower. Tav moved with inhuman speed, but not quite fast enough. The device landed, activated, and sent out a pulse of energy that made the crystal structure flicker. No, Tav cried, his perfect face showing real emotion for the first time. Rage. Marcus pulled Lisa toward the elevator. Run. In her makeshift command center, Janie watched her monitors light up. I've got their signal. And the data. Oh my God. We were right. It's all here. Ree leaned over her shoulder. Can you broadcast it? Already on it, Jamie replied, fingers flying over the keyboard. Sending the countermeasure signal and the evidence simultaneously. Every screen, every speaker, worldwide. As Marcus and Lisa burst out of the embassy, chaos was erupting. The giant screens in Times Square, which had been prepared to show Tav's message of unity, instead display the recorded confession and technical data about the nanobots. People were stopping, staring in shock at the evidence of the planned takeover. Look, Lisa pointed upward. The alien ship, which had been hovering silently above the city since Tav's arrival, was suddenly active. Lights pulsed along its surface. They're changing plans, Marcus realized. Going for a direct attack now that the deception is exposed. All across the city, people who had been standing in confused groups were now looking up at the ship with dawning anger. The spell of peaceful acceptance was broken. Then, something unexpected happened. Military jets appeared in the sky, dozens of them, surrounding the alien vessel. Marcus's secure phone buzzed. It was Jamie. It worked, she shouted over the line. The military saw the evidence. They're scrambling everything they've got. And that's not all. Look behind Jupiter. Marcus didn't need to look to know what was happening. The ships hiding there would be moving, preparing for the harvest that would now be a battle instead. We still have the alien technology, he realized. The same tech they plan to use against us. Lisa grinned, and now we know how it works. Around them, people were organizing, helping each other, preparing for a fight. Not running in panic, but standing together. The deadly quiet was over. Now came humanity's answer to the attempted disaster. The alien ship fired its first weapon, a blue energy beam that sliced through a building. But it was met with an immediate response from the military jets, which fired missiles that actually damaged the vessel's surface. How is that possible? Lisa wondered. Their technology is so advanced. They weren't prepared for resistance, Marcus said, understanding dawning. They've probably never had to fight a real battle. Why develop defenses when your invasions are always welcomed with open arms? As if confirming his theory, the alien ship began to retreat upward, trying to escape Earth's atmosphere. Several military craft pursued it. Marcus's phone rang again. This time it was a number he didn't recognize. He answered cautiously. "Captain Wade," a stern voice asked. "This is General Mitchell, Joint Chiefs. I believe we owe you and your team a debt of gratitude, and I think we could use your expertise right now." Marcus looked at Lisa, then up at the sky where humanity's first interstellar battle was unfolding. The fight would be difficult, the path forward uncertain. But one thing was clear: the deadly quiet was over, and humanity would not go quietly. "We're on our way, General," he said, "and we have some ideas about those ships behind Jupiter you might want to hear." Captain James Walker stood at the bridge of the Resilience, Earth's first faster-than-light vessel. The year was 2157, and humanity had finally broken the light barrier after decades of work. Around him, the crew worked at their stations with focused energy. They were making history, the first humans to travel beyond their solar system. "Captain, we're approaching the coordinates," said Tom Reed, the ship's navigator. His eyes were fixed on the glowing screen in front of him. Walker nodded. "Slow to half speed. Let's not make a dramatic entrance." The Resilience dropped out of FTL travel smoothly. The view screen showed a massive space station ahead. It looked like a giant metal flower with petals spread wide. Lights blinked across its surface, and smaller ships moved around it like bees around a hive. "It's beautiful," said Anna Miller, the ship's science officer. "Just like the message said. The central hub of the Galactic Council." Walker straightened his uniform. Humanity had received the message 3 years ago: a welcome to the galactic community and coordinates for this meeting. After confirming it wasn't a hoax, Earth's nations had worked together to speed up the FTL project. Now, they were here to introduce themselves properly. "Open a channel," Walker ordered. Before they could, the ship's communication system came to life. "Human vessel," a calm voice said. "You are cleared to dock at Bay 14. Follow the guide lights." Reed looked at Walker. "They knew we were coming." "Of course they did," Walker said with a small smile. "They've probably been watching us for years. Let's not keep them waiting." The Resilience followed a path of blue lights to a docking bay. With a gentle bump and hiss of airlocks, they were connected to the station. Walker led the first contact team. Miller, Reed, and Dr. Lisa Park, their diplomatic expert. They stepped through the airlock into a wide hallway. The air smelled clean but strange, with a hint of something like cinnamon. At the end of the hallway stood 3 figures. They were clearly not human. The one in the center was tall and thin with blue-gray skin and 4 arms. To its left stood a stocky creature with tough, bark-like skin. The third was almost human-looking except for its silver eyes and the ridge of small horns on its forehead. "Welcome," said the 4-armed being. "I am Director Trell of the Galactic Council. These are council members Brock and Nema." He pointed to the bark-skinned creature and the almost human one. "Captain James Walker of Earth," Walker said, stepping forward with an outstretched hand. "This is our first contact team." Trell looked at the offered hand, but didn't take it. Instead, he made a slight bow. "Please follow us to the council chamber. The others are waiting." The humans exchanged glances, but followed without comment. The council chamber was a large round room. A circular table dominated the center, with 12 seats around it. 9 were filled with aliens of different shapes and sizes. Trell and his companions took their seats, leaving the humans standing. "The council recognizes the human delegation from Earth," Trell announced. "We have observed your species for some time. You have finally achieved FTL travel, which qualifies you for first contact." Walker stepped forward. "On behalf of Earth, we're honored to meet you. We hope to learn from you and share what we know." A low murmur went around the table. Not all of it sounded friendly. "Learn from us," said a small bird-like alien with bright red feathers. "What could we possibly learn from you? Your civilization is barely out of its cradle." "Minister Vex," Trell said calmly, "let us be polite to our guests." Walker kept his face neutral. Every species has something unique to offer. We've overcome many challenges to get here. Yes, said Trell. Your persistence is notable. But persistence alone does not earn a place at this table. The Council has standards. Dr. Park stepped forward. Perhaps you could share those standards. We're eager to work toward membership. Trell's four hands made a complex gesture. Council membership requires proving your species has the stability and wisdom to join galactic society. Most species need centuries after achieving FTL travel. Centuries, Reed whispered. Some never qualify, added the bark-skinned alien named Brock. His voice sounded like grinding stones. Walker felt the weight of their judgment. These beings had been traveling the stars while humans were still figuring out agriculture. But he hadn't come all this way to be dismissed. We understand we're newcomers, Walker said. But humans adapt quickly. Give us a chance to prove ourselves. Director Trell tilted his head. A chance. How interesting. He turned to the other council members. The human wishes for a chance. More murmurs. Then Nima, the horned humanoid, spoke. Perhaps the Proxima challenge. The council chamber grew quiet. Walker noticed several council members looked uncomfortable. What is the Proxima challenge? Walker asked. Trell seemed pleased by the question. Proxima Centauri b, a planet in your own backyard, so to speak. The Council has determined it is uninhabitable by conventional standards. Deadly radiation, extreme temperature shifts, caustic atmosphere. We know of it, Miller said. Our probes have sent back data. Then you know it's hostile to life as you understand it, Trell continued. The challenge is simple. Establish a self-sustaining colony there within 5 Earth years. Succeed, and you earn Council membership. Fail, and Earth surrenders all FTL technology and remains isolated for 100 years. The human team looked shocked. That's not a fair challenge, Park said. You've just said it's uninhabitable. By conventional standards, Trell corrected. If humans are as adaptable as you claim, perhaps you'll surprise us. Of course, you can decline. Return to Earth and spend the next few centuries developing at your own pace. Walker knew what that meant. Earth was overcrowded, its resources nearly depleted. They had pinned their hopes on joining the galactic community, finding new homes among the stars. A century of isolation would be devastating. And if we accept this challenge and succeed? Walker asked. Full Council membership, Trell said. Access to all shared technology and trading rights. But no species has ever succeeded at the Proxima challenge. Minister Vex laughed. A chirping sound. The humans won't even try. They'll go home with their tails between their legs. Walker stepped forward, his decision made. We accept the challenge. His team looked at him with surprise, but no one contradicted him. Trell's expression didn't change, but Walker thought he saw disappointment in those alien eyes. Had the director expected them to refuse? Very well, Trell said. 1 Earth year to prepare, then 5 years to establish a viable colony. The Council will observe your progress. As they left the chamber, Dr. Park pulled Walker aside. Captain, do you realize what you've done? That planet could kill everyone we send there. Walker looked back at the Council chamber doors. They expect us to fail. They've already decided we're not worthy. He straightened his shoulders. But they don't know humans very well, do they? We've been surviving against the odds since we climbed down from the trees. Reed nodded slowly. Earth is counting on us. Then let's not let Earth down, Walker said, his eyes fixed on the stars visible through a nearby viewport. Let's show the Council what humans can do when someone tells us something is impossible. The news of Captain Walker's agreement with the Galactic Council spread across Earth like wildfire. Some called him a hero, others called him a fool. But no one could deny that humanity's future now hung in the balance. 1 month after the Resilience returned to Earth, Walker stood in a large conference room at the United Earth Space Agency headquarters. The walls were covered with screens showing images of Proxima Centauri. a rust-colored world that looked as unwelcoming as the council had claimed. "Ladies and gentlemen," Walker said to the group gathered around the table, "we have 11 months to prepare for the greatest challenge humanity has ever faced." The room was filled with 20 of Earth's brightest minds, scientists, engineers, and survival experts chosen from thousands of applicants. "The council believes we will fail," Walker continued. "They think Proxima will kill us. And they might be right, unless we can find a way to adapt to conditions that have been deemed impossible." An older man with gray hair and tired eyes stood up. "I've reviewed the data from our probes and the information the council provided. The radiation alone would kill an unprotected human in days. The temperature swings from boiling hot to freezing cold in the span of hours. The atmosphere is toxic. It's a death sentence." "Thank you for that cheerful summary, Dr. Wilson," Walker said dryly. "Now, does anyone have solutions instead of problems?" A woman with short brown hair and intense green eyes raised her hand. "I do." All eyes turned to her. Dr. Emma Richards, she introduced herself. "I've spent the last decade developing terraforming technologies for Mars. Proxima is worse, but the principles are the same." She walked to the main screen and brought up a series of diagrams. "My team has been working on adaptive habitats, living structures that can respond to changing conditions. We combine genetically modified bacteria with flexible building materials to create shelters that can heal themselves and evolve over time." "Sounds great in theory," Dr. Wilson said, "but Proxima would destroy your bacteria in seconds." Dr. Richards smiled. "Not if we use the planet's own microorganisms as a starting point. Our probes detected microbial life in the soil. If we can modify these organisms, which already survive there, we have a starting point." Walker nodded, feeling a spark of hope. "How quickly could you develop this?" "With unlimited resources. 6 months for the basic habitat design. But we'd be learning as we go." "You'll have whatever you need," Walker promised. A man at the end of the table cleared his throat. He was younger than most in the room, with dark circles under his eyes and hands that never seemed to stop moving. "Marcus Thompson, engineering," he said. "If we're going to build on Proxima, we need to rethink everything. Our usual materials won't work there." "What do you suggest?" Walker asked. Thompson brought up his own designs. "Modular systems, everything redundant, everything replaceable. And most importantly, everything must be able to be built from local resources. We can't ship replacement parts from Earth." "How do you know what resources are available?" someone asked. "I don't. That's why every component needs at least 3 ways to be manufactured, using different raw materials." Walker was impressed. "That's exactly the kind of thinking we need." The door opened, and a tall woman in a military uniform walked in. Her face was weathered, with a long scar running down her left cheek. "Sorry I'm late," she said, taking an empty seat. "Commander Alex Rodriguez. I was finishing up a training simulation." Walker nodded to her. "Commander Rodriguez has survived in some of the most hostile environments on Earth. She'll be training our colonists." "With respect, Captain," Rodriguez said, "no training on Earth can prepare people for Proxima. The psychological toll alone will break most candidates." "Then who do you suggest we send?" Dr. Wilson asked. Rodriguez's eyes scanned the room. "People who have already been broken and put themselves back together. People who have faced impossible odds before. Not just scientists and engineers. Survivors." "That's a tall order," Walker said. "So is building a colony on a death planet," Rodriguez replied evenly. As the meeting continued, ideas began to flow. Dr. Richards worked with Thompson to design habitats that could withstand the extreme conditions. Rodriguez outlined a training program that would push candidates to their limits and beyond. Other experts tackled food production, energy generation, and medical concerns. 6 months passed. In a massive facility built in the Arizona desert, the first prototype of the Phoenix colony took shape. It wasn't pretty. A collection of interconnected pods that looked more like a strange fungus than a human settlement. but initial tests were promising. Walker walked through the prototype with Dr. Richards, watching as sections of the structure shifted and changed in response to simulated environmental threats. "It's alive," he said, touching a wall that felt warm under his fingers. "In a way, yes," Richards agreed. "It learns from experience. The more we test it, the better it gets at protecting itself. And us." "Will it be enough?" Walker asked. Richards didn't answer immediately. "Honestly, I don't know, but it's the best chance we have." In another section of the facility, Thompson was testing equipment designed to harvest and process Proxima's resources. His latest invention was a machine that could extract breathable oxygen from the planet's toxic atmosphere. "It works," he told Walker proudly, pointing to a small plant that was surviving inside a chamber filled with simulated Proxima air. "Not efficiently yet, but it works." "Good job," Walker said, noting the dark circles under Thompson's eyes had grown deeper. "When did you last sleep?" Thompson waved the question away. "I'll sleep when we've solved this puzzle, or when I'm dead, whichever comes first." Meanwhile, Commander Rodriguez was putting the first group of colonist candidates through hell. Her training program combined physical endurance, psychological resilience, and rapid problem-solving under pressure. "Again," she shouted as a team failed to erect an emergency shelter before the simulated acid rain began to fall. "On Proxima, you'd be dead now." "Again." Walker watched from an observation room. "She's tough on them." "She has to be," Dr. Park said, standing beside him. "The Council will be watching our every move, hoping we fail. We can't give them that satisfaction." As the one-year preparation deadline approached, the final plans took shape. 3 colony ships would carry 500 carefully selected colonists, along with the components for the Phoenix colony. Dr. Richards, Thompson, and Commander Rodriguez would lead the mission. The night before the launch, Walker visited the ships. The colonists were making their final preparations, saying goodbye to Earth possibly forever. "Are we ready?" Walker asked his team leaders. "As ready as we'll ever be," Richards said. "The tech will work," Thompson promised, "or I'll fix it there." Rodriguez simply nodded. "My people won't quit, no matter what that planet throws at us." Walker looked at them with pride. "The Council thinks humans are too primitive to survive out there. Too emotional, too unpredictable." He smiled. "Let's show them that being human isn't a weakness. It's our greatest strength." The next morning, as the colony ships prepared to depart, a message arrived from the Galactic Council. Director Trell's face appeared on the main screen. "Captain Walker," he said, "the Council will be observing your attempt with interest. I must say, your species' ability to march confidently toward failure is remarkable." Walker smiled at the screen. "Thank you for your concern, Director. We'll see you in 5 years, at our new home on Proxima Centauri V." The journey to Proxima Centauri took 3 months in the colony ships. During this time, the colonists continued their training and preparations. They studied maps of the planet's surface, ran simulations of different disaster scenarios, and fine-tuned their equipment. Dr. Emma Richards spent most of her time in the lab, working with samples of Proxima's microorganisms that had been collected by earlier probes. Marcus Thompson made last-minute adjustments to his machines. Commander Rodriguez drilled the colonists daily, pushing them harder as they got closer to their destination. "We're entering the Proxima Centauri system," announced the pilot of the lead ship, Pioneer. The other 2 ships, Endurance and Discovery, followed close behind. The colonists gathered at viewing windows to see their new home for the first time with their own eyes. Proxima looked like an angry red and brown marble against the backdrop of space. "It doesn't look very welcoming," said Ben Foster, one of the younger colonists. "Neither did Earth's deserts or Antarctica," replied Rodriguez, standing beside him. "But humans live in both places now." As the ships approached the planet, their sensors began to sound alarms. "Increased solar activity detected," reported the science officer on the Pioneer. "A solar flare is heading our way." Richards rushed to the bridge. How bad? Category 5. Much stronger than anything in our simulations. Thompson joined them, his face grim. We need to land now or divert course away from the planet. If we divert, we lose valuable time, Richards said. And the next window for a safe landing might be weeks away. Rodriguez made the call. We land now. All ships prepare for emergency descent procedures. The 3 ships turned toward the planet, accelerating to beat the incoming solar flare. They hit the upper atmosphere just as the first waves of radiation washed over them. Shields failing on engines 3 and 4, shouted a technician on the Endurance. Reroute power from non-essential systems, ordered Thompson over the comm. The Pioneer entered the atmosphere first, its hull glowing red-hot from the friction. The ship shook violently as it descended through layers of toxic clouds. Landing site in view, said the pilot, fighting with the controls. But these winds are pushing us off course. Richards looked at the readouts. The air pressure is higher than our data suggested. It's affecting our descent. On the Discovery, things were even worse. A panel had come loose during the entry, exposing critical systems to the caustic atmosphere. We're losing control, the captain reported. Going to have to make an emergency landing 2 miles south of the primary site. Rodriguez gripped her seat as the Pioneer made its final approach. The landing was rough, more of a controlled crash than a proper touchdown. The ship skidded across the rocky ground before finally coming to a stop. For a moment, there was silence. Then Rodriguez's voice came over the comm. Status report, all sections. The reports came in. 12 injured, 3 seriously. Most systems were damaged but functional. The Endurance had landed a mile away with similar results. But the Discovery was in trouble. It had come down hard in a rocky area, and its hull was breached in 2 places. The caustic air was seeping in. Emergency teams to landing bay, Rodriguez ordered. Full environmental suits. We need to reach the Discovery before we lose anyone. Outside, the world was even more hostile than they had expected. The sky was a dark reddish-orange, with clouds of toxic gas swirling above. The ground was rocky and barren, with strange crystal formations jutting up in places. The air was filled with particles that scratched at their suit visors. The rescue team loaded into rovers and set out across the rough terrain. When they reached the Discovery, they found chaos. The crew was evacuating through emergency airlocks, carrying the injured. The ship's a loss, said the Discovery's captain, her suit already showing signs of damage from the atmosphere. We managed to save most of the critical supplies, but we lost the main habitat modules. Rodriguez helped organize the survivors, get everyone back to the Pioneer. We'll regroup there. By the time they returned, Richards and Thompson had set up a temporary command center in the Pioneer's cargo bay. We've lost nearly a third of our supplies, Thompson reported grimly. And without the Discovery's habitat modules, we can't build the colony as planned. What about the Endurance? Rodriguez asked. Minor damage. They've begun unloading their modules, but it's slow going in these conditions. Richard studied the data coming in from their sensors. The radiation levels are higher than expected, and there's some kind of corrosive element in the atmosphere that wasn't in our samples. It's eating through our external sensors already. Just then, a transmission came through. Director Trell's face appeared on the screen. Captain Walker has informed me of your situation, he said, his 4 arms making a gesture that might have been sympathy or satisfaction. The Council wishes to extend an offer. We will send ships to evacuate your people and end this foolish endeavor. There is no shame in admitting the challenge was beyond your capabilities. Rodriguez looked at Richards and Thompson. They all knew what accepting would mean. Earth isolated, humanity trapped in their dying solar system. Tell Director Trell we appreciate the Council's concern, Richards replied carefully. But we will need some time to assess our situation before making any decisions. After the transmission ended, Thompson slammed his fist on a console. He thinks we're going to give up already. Are we? Asked Ben Foster, who had been quietly helping tend to the injured. Richards looked out through a viewport at the hostile landscape of Proxima. No, we're going to adapt. Over the next few days, the colonists worked around the clock. They salvaged what they could from the discovery before the planet's atmosphere completely destroyed it. Thompson reconfigured his machines to work with less power. Richards studied the planet's microorganisms more closely, looking for ways to use them. 1 week after landing, Richards made a breakthrough. She burst into the command center, her face flushed with excitement, despite her exhaustion. "I found something," she said, placing a sample container on the table. Inside was what looked like a purple slime. These microbes, they don't just survive in the toxic atmosphere, they feed on it. They convert the corrosive elements into compounds similar to what we find on Earth. Thompson leaned forward. "Can we use them?" "I think so. If we can modify them and increase their reproduction rate, they could begin cleaning small areas of the atmosphere for us. It wouldn't be fast, but it would be a start." Meanwhile, Rodriguez had made a discovery of her own. The strange crystal formations that dotted the landscape had unusual properties. When exposed to the temperature swings between Proxima's day and night, they generated small electrical currents. "We could use these as power sources," she explained. "They're not as efficient as our solar panels, but they won't be damaged by the solar flares." As they worked to implement these discoveries, another transmission arrived from the Galactic Council. This time, it wasn't Director Trell but Minister Vex, the bird-like alien who had been most dismissive of humans. "We have reviewed your situation," Vex said, his feathers ruffled in what seemed like annoyance. "Your colony has suffered critical failures. By any reasonable assessment, your mission is already a failure. The Council formally suggests you accept evacuation." Richards looked at her colleagues, then back at the screen. "Minister Vex, please inform the Council that we have made some interesting discoveries. Our mission continues as planned." After the transmission ended, Thompson gave a tired smile. "Think they're worried?" Richards nodded. "They should be. We've only just begun to prove them wrong." 3 months after landing on Proxima Centauri, the human colony was taking shape. They called their settlement Phoenix Base, a fitting name for a community rising from the ashes of their difficult landing. Dr. Richards' modified microbes were proving to be a success. Contained in special domes around the settlement, they were slowly converting the toxic air into something humans could breathe, at least inside those protected spaces. The colonists could now work in some areas wearing only light-breathing masks instead of full environmental suits. Marcus Thompson had built shelters using materials from the planet itself. The strange crystals that Commander Rodriguez had discovered were now a key part of their power system. During the extreme temperature shifts between day and night, the crystals generated enough electricity to power their essential systems. 1-year anniversary coming up soon, Thompson said as he worked alongside Richards in the main laboratory. "We should celebrate." Richards smiled. "Celebrate surviving, you mean?" "Exactly. The Council didn't think we'd last a month." The lab was inside one of the larger domes, where the air was almost Earth-like thanks to the microbes. Outside, the landscape was still harsh and red, but small patches of engineered plants were beginning to grow in protected areas. Ben Foster entered the lab carrying a datapad. He had become Richard's assistant, showing a natural talent for understanding the planet's unusual biology. "The new microbe batch is ready for testing," he reported. "And the soil samples from Site C are showing signs of reduced toxicity." "Good," Richard said. "We're making progress faster than I expected." Just then, an alarm blared throughout the base. Red lights flashed in the corridor outside the lab. "Warning: environmental system failure in Dome 2. All personnel evacuate immediately," announced the automated system. Richards and Thompson exchanged worried looks before rushing toward the emergency. When they arrived at Dome 2, they found Rodriguez already organizing an evacuation. The dome's air was rapidly becoming toxic again as the microbe systems failed. "What happened?" Thompson asked, checking the control panels. "System just shut down with no warning," Rodriguez said, helping a coughing colonist to safety. All the microbe containers failed at the same time. Once everyone was safe, Thompson examined the system more closely. His face darkened as he worked. "This wasn't an accident," he finally said. "Someone deliberately shut down the safety protocols and introduced a toxin to kill the microbes." "Sabotage?" Richards asked, shocked. "But who ruled?" "The council," Rodriguez interrupted, her voice hard. "They're making sure we fail." That night, the colony leaders met in the secure command center. The mood was grim. "We've checked the other domes," Thompson reported. "They're secure for now, but this attack shows our vulnerability. We lost 3 weeks of progress in Dome 2. "Could it have been an accident?" asked Dr. Lee, the colony's medical director. "No," Thompson shook his head. "The system logs show someone accessed the controls using advanced tech we don't even have. The toxin that killed our microbes isn't from this planet." Rodriguez leaned forward. "We need to set up security patrols. If there are saboteurs here, we'll find them." "But there haven't been any ships," Richards pointed out. "No one has landed since we arrived." "Maybe they were already here," Foster suggested. "Or maybe they have technology that can hide their ships from our sensors." The next day, Rodriguez organized security teams to patrol the perimeter of the settlement. Thompson installed new sensors and alarms on all critical systems. Richards backed up her research data and created hidden reserves of her modified microbes. For 2 weeks, nothing happened. Then one night, the farm dome lost power. All the lights went out, and the temperature control system failed. In the freezing cold of the Proxima night, most of their food crops died. "Another attack," Rodriguez said as they surveyed the damage the next morning. "They're targeting our survival basics, air and food." Thompson examined the power connection. "They're getting smarter. This looks like an accident, a power coupling that failed naturally. But I designed these with triple redundancy. All 3 backups failing at once. Impossible." Richards looked at the dead plants. "Months of work destroyed. We can start again, but we'll need to ration food until the new crops grow." Over the next month, more accidents happened. A water recycler exploded. A rover broke down miles from the base, stranding a survey team until they could be rescued. Critical medical supplies were found contaminated. After each incident, the colonists adapted. They built more backups, created new security measures, and found ways to work around the damage. But the constant sabotage was taking its toll. People were tired, resources were stretched thin, and morale was falling. During a rare quiet moment, Richards, Thompson, and Rodriguez met on a small hill overlooking the base. The sun was setting, turning the red landscape an even deeper crimson. "We need to find the saboteurs," Thompson said. "If this keeps up, they'll wear us down eventually." "I've been thinking," Richards said slowly. "What if we don't try to stop them? What if we let them think they're winning?" Rodriguez looked at her sharply. "Explain." "We set up obvious targets, systems that look critical that aren't. When they attack those, we'll be watching." "A trap," Thompson nodded, understanding. "I like it." They put their plan into action. Thompson built what appeared to be a new main power generator. It was placed in an easily accessible location with minimal security. In reality, it was just a shell with tracking devices hidden inside. 3 nights later, their trap worked. The security cameras caught a shadowy figure approaching the fake generator. The figure moved oddly, too fluid to be human. When the alarm sounded, it fled, but not before Rodriguez's team could follow at a distance. The saboteur led them to a hidden ship, camouflaged among the crystal formations 2 miles from the base. Before they could capture it, the ship activated and vanished, using technology beyond human understanding. But they had gained valuable information. The ship's brief energy signature was recorded, and they found traces of unusual materials at the site. "We need to report this to Earth," Rodriguez said. "The Council is actively trying to make us fail." They sent a message to Captain Walker, including all their evidence. His reply came a week later. Message received. Evidence presented to Council. Director Trell denies involvement, but admits some factions may be acting independently. Continue mission. Earth is counting on you. Along with the message came a surprising package. New technology from Earth to help detect cloaked ships and protect their systems from sabotage. So the Council knows we know, Thompson said after reading the message. But they're not stopping the saboteurs. Of course not, Rodriguez said bitterly. They want us to fail, but they want to keep their hands clean. Richard studied the new technology from Earth. Let's use this to protect our most critical systems. But for everything else, I have a better idea. Her plan was bold. Instead of centralizing their critical resources, they would distribute them. Small, hidden gardens instead of one large farm dome. Multiple small power generators instead of a central plant. Redundant systems everywhere, but none appearing important. Make us too difficult to cripple with a single attack, Rodriguez nodded approvingly. And then feed false information about vulnerabilities, Thompson added, catching on. Let them waste time attacking decoys while we build the real colony they can't see. As they implemented this strategy, a transmission arrived from the Council. Director Trell's face appeared on the screen, his 4 arms making a gesture of formal greeting. Humans of Proxima Colony, he said. The Council observes that you have faced difficulties. Your persistence is noted, but perhaps misguided. There is no shame in recognizing when a challenge exceeds capability. Richard stepped forward to respond. Thank you for your concern, Director. But humans have a saying, what doesn't kill us makes us stronger. We're not just surviving here, we're learning how to thrive. After the transmission ended, Thompson grinned. Did you see his face? He's worried. Good, Rodriguez said. He should be. Because now we're not just building a colony, we're fighting back. 4 years and 7 months had passed since the humans first landed on Proxima Centauri V. The planet that had once seemed determined to kill them was now home to a thriving colony. Phoenix Base had grown beyond recognition. What started as a few survival domes was now a network of interconnected habitats spread across 5 square miles. Gardens flourished in specially designed chambers. The toxic atmosphere around the settlement had been noticeably transformed by Dr. Richard's microbes, which now reproduced naturally in the environment. In the main medical center, Dr. Lee was examining a young woman named Mia, who was 8 months pregnant. Everything looks normal, Dr. Lee said, smiling. The baby is healthy despite the higher radiation levels. This will be our first child born on Proxima. The Council said it would be impossible, Maya replied, rubbing her belly. They said humans couldn't reproduce here because of the radiation. The Council has been wrong about many things, Dr. Lee said. Across the settlement, Marcus Thompson was working on his latest invention, a machine that could process the caustic elements in Proxima's soil and turn them into building materials stronger than steel. Try it now, he called to his assistant. The machine hummed to life, taking in the reddish soil and producing smooth, dark blocks that cooled rapidly in the air. Perfect, Thompson said, examining one of the blocks. These will let us build bigger structures without waiting for supplies from Earth. Commander Rodriguez entered the workshop, her face serious as always but with a hint of pride in her eyes. Thompson, we've got visitors, she said. The Council's observation ship just entered orbit. They're sending down representatives for the final inspection. Thompson put down the block. Right on schedule. 5 years almost to the day. In the command center, Dr. Richards was preparing for the Council's visit. The large screen showed the alien ship in orbit, sleek, silver, and much larger than any human vessel. They're bringing the whole Council this time, she said to Ben Foster, who was now her chief assistant. Not just observers. Do you think they'll admit we've succeeded? Foster asked. Richards smiled. They'll have to. We've met every requirement they set. We have a self-sustaining colony with over 600 people, including some who've never even been to Earth. We grow our own food, generate our own power, and we're expanding every month. Plus, we survived their sabotage attempts," Rodriguez added as she entered. "Though they'll never admit to those." A communication came through. Director Trell's face appeared on the screen, his expression as unreadable as ever. "Dr. Richards, Commander Rodriguez, Engineer Thompson," he greeted them formally. "The Council will arrive at your landing pad in 1 hour to conduct the final assessment of your colony." "We'll be ready to welcome you," Director Richards replied. After the transmission ended, Thompson sighed. 5 years of work, all judged in 1 day. "They've been watching us the whole time," Rodriguez reminded him. "This is just a formality." When the Council's shuttle landed, the colony's leadership team was waiting. All 13 Council members emerged, looking around with expressions ranging from curiosity to poorly hidden disappointment. Director Trell approached first. "We will need a complete tour of your facilities and access to all your data to verify your colony's sustainability." "Of course," Richards agreed. "We've prepared everything." The tour began. The Council members were shown the living quarters, the farms, the power generation systems, and the manufacturing facilities. At each stop, Thompson or Richards explained how they had adapted Earth technology to work in Proxima's harsh environment. Some Council members asked detailed questions, while others remained silent. Minister Vex, the bird-like alien who had been most dismissive of humans, seemed particularly intent on finding flaws. "These plants," he said, pointing to a garden of vegetables, "they are Earth species. True sustainability would require using native life forms." Richard smiled. "If you look closely, Minister, you'll see these aren't exactly Earth plants anymore. We've modified them to incorporate elements of Proxima's native microbial life. They're hybrids that can process the local soil directly." Vex made a dismissive sound but moved on. As the tour continued, a warning siren suddenly blared throughout the colony. "Warning. Seismic activity detected. Potential volcanic event in progress." The automated voice was calm but urgent. The Council members looked alarmed, but Rodriguez remained composed. "Everyone please follow me to the secure center," she directed. "This is a standard precaution. You built your colony near a volcanic zone." Director Trell asked incredulously. "We built our colony on the most stable ground available," Thompson explained as they walked quickly. "But this entire planet has high geological activity. We've prepared for this." In the command center, screens showed a developing situation. A dormant vent 5 miles from the colony had become active, releasing superheated gas and molten material. "Projected path will bring lava flow within 2 miles of the eastern dome," reported a technician. Minister Vex turned to Director Trell. "This is clearly a colony-ending event. The inspection has shown that humans cannot maintain a stable settlement on this planet." Director Trell seemed ready to agree when Richard stepped forward. "Actually, this is an opportunity to demonstrate our final adaptation system," she said confidently. "Thompson, activate the flow channels." Thompson nodded and entered commands into the main console. Outside, large barriers rose from the ground in a pattern leading away from the colony. "What are those?" asked one of the Council members. "Lava flow directors," Thompson explained. "Made from the heat-resistant materials we developed using Proxima's own minerals. They'll channel the flow away from our settlement and into the collection basins." "Collection basins," Director Trell repeated. "You intend to capture the molten material?" Rodriguez nodded. "The volcanic output contains rare elements we need for our advanced systems, and the heat will be converted to power through our thermal generators. This event will provide enough energy to run the colony for months." The Council watched in astonishment as the humans' preparations worked perfectly. The lava flowed along the predetermined channels, away from the settlement, and into large reinforced basins. The colony's power readings surged as the thermal generators absorbed the heat. "You anticipated this?" Director Trell asked. "We didn't just survive here," Director Richards said. "We studied the planet. We learned from it. We adapted to it. And now we're using what would be disasters on Earth as resources." Hours later, when the volcanic activity had stabilized, the council gathered for their final assessment. The tension was palpable as Director Trell stood to deliver their verdict. The Galactic Council has reviewed the human colony on Proxima Centauri, he began formally. By unanimous agreement, we find that humans have established a self-sustaining presence on a world previously deemed uninhabitable by Council standards. He paused, his forearms making a gesture that seemed to indicate reluctance. As per our agreement with Earth, humanity has earned its place on the Galactic Council. Your representative may take their seat at our next gathering. A cheer went up from the colonists who had gathered to hear the announcement. Richards, Thompson, and Rodriguez exchanged proud smiles. As the celebration began, Captain Walker arrived on a ship from Earth to witness the moment. He found Richards standing alone, looking out at the transformed landscape of their new home. "You did it," Walker said, joining her. "You proved them all wrong." Richards watched as the sun set over the horizon, casting long shadows across the colony that many had said was impossible. "No, Captain," she replied. "We did it. All of us. Not because we're stronger or smarter than the Council races, but because we've never forgotten what it means to struggle. Earth taught us that lesson over thousands of years." Walker nodded. Director Trell asked me how we succeeded against all logical probability. "And what did you tell him?" Walker smiled. "I told him it's because humans were built against all odds, and we've been proving doubters wrong since we first stood upright on the African savanna." As night fell on Proxima Centauri, the lights of the human colony shone brightly against the darkness, a beacon of what could be accomplished when determination met challenge, when innovation met necessity, when humans faced the impossible and refused to accept defeat.